Welcome to another Backyard Professor Chess video. We're up in the year 1957 now with Bobby Fischer. We are seeing our hero practice, grow, develop, play some tournaments, lose, win, draw, etc. 1957 is yet another year that helped shape Fischer's chess style. This game is difficult. It just is. I'm not going to hold back on you there. He plays Aram, Auram, in a King's Indian defense early in 1957. And Fischer's playing the black. I think it was early games like these that helped shape Bobby and get him to where he liked certain styles of games and he did not like other certain styles of games. And so these were critical, formative years. I know it's blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows this, right? I'm blabbing so that I can get to the opening good stuff. This game would have been much more to the liking of Aaron Nimzowitsch than it ever would be for Bobby Fischer. We don't see a lot of games like this with Fischer later in his career. So this is a really important, fun, evolutionary development to see how he said yes and how he said no to certain types of games he liked to play where he felt more comfortable. It will become obvious that he is uncomfortable with what we're about to see. Now, this is his King's Indian defense setup. Observe both players somewhat have good space. The white, because of this opening, the white has greater central space, right? There is a little tension in the center. They don't have to worry about offsetting that immediately. But Fischer has a real good King Indian setup. Let's see what happens. Kablam. Now, we haven't seen a lot of games like this in the tournament record of Fischer up to this point. So this is, I'm going to say, new territory. And I don't mean that literally, but this is new territory for Fischer. So let's see how he handles it, shall we? And the bishop will come up. On the basis of gaining more space so that white can maneuver easier, white has a good opening here. Okay. That doesn't mean black has a bad opening. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying white has a good opening on the basis of space. He closed the center. And again, it always is worth reiterating talking basics here because just like Bruce Lee, he said, you always practice the basic punches and basic kicks thousands of times a week, literally. And so the basics. In a closed center, the pawns are locked. From that, and it doesn't mean the game is going to remain closed, but for now, and you have to keep flexible, the dynamic calls for knights in closed systems over bishops, which like open boards. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you a big hairy lecture. So look for the players to find ways to give their knights an outpost. What is an outpost? An outpost is a pawn backing up the knight. An outpost is a pawn backing up the knight. That would not be a good outpost for white, obviously. It would be best if the black pawn wasn't there. But the knight has to have a support, usually a pawn, to make a good outpost. That's an outpost. That's not an outpost. but that is an outpost. Now, of course, the knight would be chased away, so that's not a permanent outpost. If that was the position, did you notice, amazingly enough, how much more powerful that knight is if there's no pawns to attack it? That is a fantastic outpost if that was the position. So this is kind of, in other words, they will, if it remains closed, this can change. They don't have to leave it closed. They can open it up, pushing some of the F pawns, or even this pawn here attacking the chain and all. Just so we're aware, that would be the strategy they would want to take in a closed game. Okay, that's enough lecturing. Stop lecturing and show us the game. This is a good little game, you guys. So bishop e3, typical development. Castles, very good. It's all good. And now queen d2, yes. So you see where he's going to castle, right? So we're going to have opposite side boards castling. I mean, he didn't open up that position between the king and the rook to castle king side, right? Okay, just so you understand. Oh, no. Wait, what did I miss? I already missed something. Oh, no. Queen d2, f5. Okay, here we go. Queen d2, f5. See, again, Fischer is going to open up the center. You don't have to leave those pawn chains locked. And this is one good way to open it up. So here we go. And of course, he's going to castle. Of course. And Bobby closes the center. Now, and I know I'm probably being over dramatic. I get that. But I don't know very many games where I saw him do this earlier. So again, this is a learning experience. But now the center is closed further down. And it's not permanent. There are ways to break open that center, right? But notice how it gave Bobby more space to maneuver on that side of the board. So that's the side of the board you're going to play on. If you're ever wondered that, the direction of your pawn chain pointing is the side you want to play on the most. So this side is going to be, as a general rule, where Fischer's going to want to go. White, on the other hand, his pawns are like an arrow pointing this way. So this side. So there's our strategy, automatically determined by the pawn chains, assuming again that the center stays closed. Bishop f2, he will come down, and Bobby bumps his bishop to f6. Now the knight g to e2, know that he's castled queenside. See, he has the space to bring all of his pieces out, right? You notice Bobby also has the space to begin getting his pieces out. So it's closed, but not cramped. Does that make sense? This is why reading the board is so important. We now know where to go and what to do as a generality. We're not just swamped and lost and wondering, gee, what do I do next? Do I do this? No, you don't. I promise you don't. I know you can't go there, so don't go there either. And you go, duh. But there's a purpose. This would tie in your bishop a little bit, wouldn't it? Hem in your bishop. On the other hand, understand, these severely limit how far the bishop can develop. See, the white squared pawns make the white squared bishop a bad bishop. The dark squared pawns make the dark squared bishop a bad bishop. Not weak, just bad. You can see how it severely limits them. So it might not be a bad thing in that case to develop your knight first, because your bishop's not going to go anywhere useful anyway. You see how that works? Just sharing ideas as they come into my head based on the position of the board. So knight ge2, bishop to h4. And you begin to notice something. You say, well, Bobby keeps moving the same piece more than once in the opening. When the center is locked like this, though, you're not in as big a hurry to develop everything. You're just not, because there's no danger of a crash through the center or even on the wings right now. Nobody's technically in danger. So you want to start looking for tactics and use your strategy. This points this direction, and that is where Bobby is playing. All accurate, right? It appears that his opponent is going to be able to play on this side where his pawns are pointing, potentially. I'm just pointing that out to you, right? So here comes Bobby, perhaps trying to soften up his opponent, test his opponent, see, hey, are you going to give me something cool that I can do tactics-wise now? Because, or do you want to just swap straight across and let me get my queen up into here? Would that be wise? I don't know, right? So his opponent chooses not to exchange bishops. So see, it's Bobby's bad bishop because the pawns are on the dark squares, but look at the effect he's having into his opponent's camp. It's just worth noting. So bad bishop doesn't necessarily mean ineffective, useless, weak, and all that. It's a very active bad bishop for Bobby. So don't let the label stymie you. So, and then Bobby does come back to e7. Okay, no harm, no foul. No tactics, it's good. He wanted to exchange off his bad bishop, which is always a good strategy. His opponent recognized that. Why give in to Bobby's desires? Why exchange off his bad bishop for your good bishop? Even though it's limited at this point by the pawn chain, that is White's good bishop. It's not being immobilized or limited by his own pawns, which means your opponent's pawns can become targets. So why exchange off your good bishop for Bobby's bad bishop? No, don't do that. Bobby saw that and said, well, thought I'd give you a shot. Just in case you didn't know that strategy, try that on in some of your games, just in case, because it really will make a difference in your game. So his opponent didn't fall for it, so Bobby came back, because leaving it there doesn't do anything at this point. So now the king to b1, and truly when you do castle on the queen side, pretty quick after that, maybe one within 2-3 moves, you do want to bring your king over to the b square to guard the a pawn. That's just standard protocol on a queenside castle. And now, okay, here we go. It's almost as if I played this game before, played through it. Bobby has chosen instead, because there's really nothing useful for his bishop. Let's go ahead and get the knight in. Besides, it is a locked center, and so the knights do better in this situation than the bishops. And this is a wonderful illustration of that. No kidding. All of the bishops are essentially not doing a lot, because they can't. This board is actually split right down the middle, isn't it? Diagonally. That side's for you, Bobby. This side's for me, is what his opponent's thinking. But the knights could be really effective, and so Bobby starts playing the knights. You see, you're not lost as to, holy cow, now what do I do? Do I have to start pushing this little guy here to get my rook developed or anything like that? You could, but it's better to go ahead and use your knights in this locked, tight, closed up somewhat way. So Bobby's playing really good, is what I'm trying to tell you. And his knight does come back to c1. You say, well, he's moving another piece twice or three times in the opening. It's all good because the board is locked. You can take the time, and you should rearrange your pieces to the most effective square and the most effective side of the board. The pawns point this direction, and sure enough, and it's a locked system. Sure enough, what are we seeing him do? He is bringing his he is bringing his knight over to the best side to play. That's great chess. He's following the dictates of the chessboard. And it's weird because, man, I'm serious. It automatically makes you play a better game when you follow the dictates of what the board is telling you to do. Call me crazy, I don't care, but Silman became a multimillionaire teaching this stuff. And he churned out champion after champion after champion. His kids are really good. So this is fun to see. So knight c1, and then Bobby will take the moment to tuck his king further away to safety. And now knight d3. So that knight has gone a-hopping, hasn't he? He's gone, he's out in the pasture gallivanting around. And at this point, he's in a pretty good position. That's not bad, actually. You go, I really wouldn't mind playing white. In fact, if you were to look at the board and you didn't know who was playing who, you would want to pick the white side at this point, I would think. At least I would. So not a bad setup. And now, this is Steinitz's rule. Take away the advanced posts of the knights. Now, we've learned, you already knew this, I know, but we've relearned that in a closed system, a locked system, outposts are what the knights are looking for. Okay, so Bobby it's obvious that his knight wants an outpost. That makes sense. You don't have to let him get there, though. If you let him get there, and then you threaten him to make him go back there, what happens if he does some kind of a real crazy sacrifice move? It's going to change the whole nation. You don't know. Now, I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying as a general, you don't know that he's going to just go straight back. He really well may have a plan to go damage your structure. Well, then you've got surprises and you have to think extra hard and lose time on the clock. Instead, just take the square away from him and notice the effect. Again, we've got the effect that the bishops are sincerely, obviously, quite limited in this game due to the locked pawn structure. So utilize the knights. What's wrong with doing preventative maintenance, as it were, and limiting the knights also? That's great chess. So that's fun to see. Okay, now queen will come over to c2. And rook comes up to f7. And knight comes down to e2. See, you took away the outpost, so you have to resituate the knight. Now, and you say, well, no, wait a minute. They're not developing all their pieces before they're trying stuff. Correct. Development is a temporary advantage. You always catch up in development. So in this setup, they're manipulating and trying to move and figure out where's the best spot for my pieces so that if and when I decide I want to go ahead and push a pawn and start opening things up, if I want to start pushing pawns and opening up the center, will all of my pieces be placed good so that I can take advantage of all of a sudden the chessboard is open. So this is all preparation, and in a locked board, that's all good. It's okay if you move a single piece 4 or 5 times in the opening and don't develop another one or two. That's not hurting anything. In this setup, that's why you want to know how to read the board. In other boards, this could be a disaster, moving that knight 4 different times. In this situation, it has actually benefited him. Every rule is made to break depending on the board position, right? That's just how chess is. So this is fun to see. Fun to see. Knight e2, and queen now comes to f8. So we're getting a little bit more movement, kind of situating the pieces. And then queen comes to c3. Okay, now what's going on? Pawn's pointing, let's play this side, but now you're getting a bigger piece up there. You've got to die. Yes, she's hitting granite for the moment. Understand that. But look, you always want to just pay attention to stuff like that. No, there's no damage right now, but that's right now. You could get a nasty surprise if all of a sudden you start doing stuff like that and opening this up. That then becomes a pinned pawn. It's a pinned pawn right now. I understand that. But so just so you're aware, always take notice. Follow your eye. Okay, the queen was here. Why did she go up to there? Well, she's not attacking anything. No, it's not always about attacking stuff. But she's setting up a potential discovered check. And I mean, it could be 8 moves away. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to happen right now. Just recognize that. Realize, okay, hold on. I've got a potential issue here. Maybe I can do something in between to get rid of that. A good setup for a devastating tactic if Fischer is not careful. That's what that does. So Fischer goes ahead and bumps up g5. At this point, the comment is b6 is better. I'm just pointing out that b6 was called for. Those of you who want to try to see why is fine. He went g5. He's pushing for more. Okay. See, this is a balancing act, man. It's good. He pushed g5. He's getting more space. But it's the side the king is castled on, right? And you're always having to deal with this issue, you guys. There's no way out of it. Some days, some games, depending on how the opening went, you absolutely will never, ever move any of those pawns out from in front of a castle king. We've seen games like that. But look at this. There's other games, again, depending on the opening, where you do want to push the pawns, even though it's on the castle king side, there's a benefit to it, more space. So you see the juggling act. This is why we keep playing chess. It's always so fun to see the differences, to practice, experiment, learn, play. We're having fun. Okay, now we're having fun, but now his opponent's saying, okay, yeah, I like this. This will change the dynamic of the entire game. It is precisely why, rather than break into it at the front of the chain, he's going to come into this one. All of his space is here. But notice how he's put his pieces, both his bishops rake up this direction. Just realize, yeah, they're way down there doing nothing. Not true. Their influence can be felt almost immediately if that center clears up. Just recognize that. You got your two knights here that can easily jump to either side. And they're somewhat central. Yeah, they're a little farther back. Don't worry about that. Those knights are very mobile, and they will have the backup of both bishops if they go that direction or that direction. So there's potential here, is what I'm telling you. The energy has built up, and you've got the lady, and she just radiates power every direction. And she's up here in the middle with the bishops and the knights and the rook. And I know he's hitting granite here. That's not the issue. Look at just the influence. That setup is like a coiled cobra. And it's ready to... And here it comes. So you see all the different maneuverings, positionings make sense. You kind of get the feeling that Bobby is not quite ready for the breakthrough. And you can call it an attack, a breakthrough. This will change the dynamic of the entire board. And it's crazy, you say, just one pawn move, because of the way that they've opened and because of the nature of the locked center. Yes, just one pawn move. It can either make you or break you for real. So this is why it's helpful to learn how to read the board, read it, and play according to what the board is telling you to play. I mean, granted, this is pure Jeremy Silman. There's people who don't like Jeremy Silman. I love Jeremy Silman. It has worked for me. I know there's several hundred of you who keep commenting in the comments that it's worked for you. Bravo, hallelujah, praise the Lord, and pass the mustard. So let's see what just a pawn move does to change the dynamic and how we need to be flexible and redo some strategy when the board changes so dynamically. That's critical also. So let's keep going. Let's take a look. Bobby, we love you. The world loved you and continues to love you. But that was a dubious move. So, what the heck? Here we go. Here we go. What's going to happen now? Watch this. And this, of course, I'm not a lot, this surprised me, no surprise, because I'm not that good at chess. I love to share it, teach it, learn from it, etc. My chess rating sucks. I'm never going to be a grandmaster, let alone a master. It's all good. Life is sweet, good, and wonderful. I still have a blast doing this. Watch what his opponent does. This surprised me. H4, and that got an exclamation point. That was the move to do. And you go, wow. Okay. Bobby's going to come up to rook g7. Let's see why. Watch what the dynamic. Now remember, I said this pawn move was going to change the dynamic of the board. I didn't lie to you. Bobby shouldn't have taken the pawn. Watch the effect of this pawn move, and it's way over here. And you go, wait, no, there is no wait. This is how chess works. You do something over here, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're changing things over here. This is really interesting. Okay, rook g7. H takes g5, and the rook will take g5. Okay, so we see a rook getting into the game. This could be good. This was the point of pressing the h4. Can you see it? It's not obvious, and yet in a way it is obvious. His opponent loses the exchange. It's called losing a better piece for a lesser piece. It's somewhat of a sacrifice, but this was the point. Because in this dynamic, a knight could be more valuable than a rook. So he loses the exchange and gets rid of one of those knights. And you say, but BYP, he's got the open file. This is correct. If you saw that, congratulations. You're supposed to. Good eye. It's really, really interesting. By the way, he got 2 exclamations for that exchange sacrifice. That means that was the move to make. Why? Let's see. Because now we get this. And you're going, this guy is either a genius or a madman. Why would you sacrifice a knight for a pawn? That's not just any pawn. That's a pawn that changes the dynamic of the board, just like this one did. Are you noticing what's happening here? And you say, well, it's just one pawn. Look at where the pawn chain disappears. Watch this. Bobby does not fall for it. He brings his rook down. He did not take that knight. You can't, because of the pin. Didn't I say a few moves earlier, you want to keep your eye on that? Now, if you're the one that has the potential tactic, then by all means, do it. Because the benefit now is, this is what they call in the chess parlance an absolute pin. With the king, you can't move the piece or the pawn. Now, had a bishop or had a knight or a rook been there, then he could have taken the knight. Not on this one. No way, no how. So Bobby's going to try. Notice how it changes the entire dynamic of this chess game now. Now there is no locked game. Fascinating, beautiful long-range view of a tactic that he was able to use a few moves later. Interesting, isn't it? I love chess for that reason. So Bobby's going to try to make the best with his rook. The angels are blaring their horns. Look at that knight outpost. That is absolutely more beautiful than a symphony. That's the most powerful piece on this board. And you say, well, now wait. Nope. That is the most powerful piece on this board right now. You really need to play through this video a few times, so that you can see how this is working. Notice the tactics allow the infiltration on the absolute most powerful rank that a knight can get to, the 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And he's in a direct central outpost. Look at the influential area of this knight deep into Bobby's territory. Touching the queen, hitting this guy. He could destroy the queen side of Bobby if he wants, but he's got bigger targets. Notice now how vulnerable that king might be. This is really serious against Fischer, but you must see that strategy. The bishops, they ain't doing diddly spit. Not true, but I mean, technically, they are influencing, but they're way, 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 way out of the game. Bobby's bishops are truly useless at this point. But those knights, man, they're animals. Get it? Knight, horse. Okay, I want to emphasize that because that is so spectacular. Queen f6. Quit talking, get showing. Believe me, it's worth taking a moment just to show you some things. I promise you'll love it when you play through this a few times. You're going to marvel at how good he plays this. Now, here come the bishops, and guess what? No more pawn chain. So now, and yes, his pawns are still pointing to play on this side of the game. That's not literal, even though it is. If you have a chance to come over to here, would that not be a killer move? If it was your move right there. You see how this is starting to work? What happens? Bobby will come to bishop d6. He's doing the best he can to make his pieces strongest. So there's still the tactic of the pinned pawn, yes, but just in case he takes the pawn, Bobby wants to be able to exchange. Don't just leave it up for grabs free. That's way too much power radiating to that almost naked king now. Notice that? So much to notice. It doesn't take you a long time, but you need to, every move, recheck that board. Look at how the game has entirely changed. I love how this works. This is just really interesting. Now, interestingly enough, knight f2. And you say, well, wait a minute. He was coming. Yeah, don't worry about all that. Knight f2. Let's see what happens. He'll come to rook h5. Now, bishop to e2. Gently, slowly, the bishops are getting activated more central, which means more power, and obvious, more central. Now that the pawns are gone, more power. Recognize how this is working. Now the bishops begin to get into this game. The knights are fantastic for white, right? But now the bishops are starting to come in. It is true, Bobby has a rook on an open file, but man, there's not a lot there for him. That's important to notice also. And I'm not trying to diss on Bobby. We're learning from Bobby as well as his opponent. And now the knight will exchange the knight. Yeah, knight will take, and the bishop will take. Okay, so we're clearing things out. And now this is a whole different game. Now your strategy of focusing on your knights has somewhat shifted. You don't want to leave any piece undeveloped if you can help it. Now you don't want to be wasting moves repositioning stuff. Now you really have to fight, okay? As a general rule, and watch. Now he starts fighting. Uh-oh. And that's the right place to go. Rook h2. Bobby's going to try like crazy to get some influence with that rook. It's essentially the only piece he can do anything with. Have you also noticed that? Again, and I know what I just said earlier. I'm going to re-say this except in a different way. Notice that the rook is, for all intents and purposes, Bobby's only piece of activation. His bishop is a bad bishop. And you say, well, it's just one pawn. I don't care. Look where his bishop is, and look at how that pawn minimizes him. And he's got nothing to do here because that pawn minimizes him. And here, he doesn't do a dang thing either. Just be aware of stuff like that so that if there's a potential way to correct that, then you can. But I'm just pointing stuff out like that. So white, rook, yeah, rook went to h2, and now he will take the last pawn. Yikes. And queen goes to g6. Now, I know there's purists, there's chess purists. I get it. I understand. They hate doubling up pawns. Oh, no, 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 no. That's bad, 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 bad. Hold on. Sometimes, once again, it falls back to the board position. Double pawns are bad. These two little fellas right here are sensational. They are phenomenal pawns. Look at their power of influence, which supports this guy all right there and all in Bobby's territory. That's a passed pawn. Now Bobby has to blockade it. It's only weak if it can be blockaded. But how do you blockade it? His other pawn's covering the square. This is power. Double pawns. Oh, no, don't ever do that. Wrong. Read the board and look and see. In this instance, doubling the pawn is magnifico. È superbo. Superbo. That is phenomenal. That's how that works. Okay, bf3, or bishop f3, sorry. And now b6. Do something, Bobby. What? Nimzovich is smiling right now on the white. Total domination of the center in this instance by literally possessing it with pieces and pawns, right? Not just influence from a distance. I own it. I'm putting all my stuff there. And from the center radiates the power. Bobby is completely scattered out to pasture. Nothing can coordinate. I'm pointing out the obvious, just it's a good refresher list. Everything here is coordinated. The difference is absolutely stark. I need you to see that. And does he stop? Bishop f4. At this point, you have to say, be still, mine heart, and pray for inspiration. Because, oh my goodness, this is bad. This is very, very bad. For Bobby. Oh, that's not even going to help you, Bobby. Continue pressing forward. Notice he's in no hurry. Notice he's not attacking. White is not attacking. Notice he's just going one step at a time. And his entire incredible power is just marching to victory. Man, this is outrageously awesome. So now rook, notice how many, and again, I think this is why Bobby stopped playing in this type of setup, because notice how many defensive reaction moves Bobby's rook is having to make. He's making no progress. Notice this. This is so critical. He has still not got anything coordinated because he can't. And yet his opponent systematically is going forward with pure power. Really amazing. And now the queen wants to get into the fun. She's done her job here. Let's go to here. Watch what happens here. This is interesting. Now, okay. He gave, not really, but in a way, he gave Bobby a chance to. Okay, let's try to at least start coordinating something. Let's get some powers working together here. Pieces working together. So let's see if he can do it. Go, Bobby, go. Passed pawn. I told you those double pawns are not a weakness. Observe. Don't be skittish on doubled pawns just because you've seen someone say, oh, horrible weakness. That depends on where they're at and the position of the board. In this instance, I wouldn't trade those for anything in the world. That is the most powerful piece on the board. The most dangerous, I'll put it that way. The most dangerous. That's probably a little more accurate. Bobby has to focus here. Bobby has to focus. Bobby has to focus here now, or it's curtains. That's the power of a passed pawn. Beautiful lesson here. Okay, so this is truly what he's got no choice. You got to swap at this point. Yeah. All of his pawns are grouped together in a support power thrust fashion. This is a wipeout. That's pure power. Pawns. The lowly pawn. Oh, yeah. Pawns aren't worth much. Don't worry about them. Are you kidding me? That's the most powerful system of pieces on the board right now. You think I'm kidding? Keep watching. So G takes F4, and now H5? Well, obviously, you got to do something. I'll put it that way. Here we go. Knight D3. Again, the maneuverability because of the space he gained. I'm not saying Bobby's cramped. Bobby is completely scattered to the four winds. But notice because of the space, the beautiful coordinated of space pushing those pawns, sometimes he can move the queen and she can be very devastatingly influential. Sometimes the bishop, and it now has vast extended range on this end, on this side now. And now the knight. Just observe the flexibility here. This is really important. Bobby's going to go for broke. I mean, in the way you can't blame him. What else is there? I hate to put it that way. And now Queen C3 check. Now that he literally owns the center and there is no more blocking, forget the tactic of pinning the pawn. Go check. Queen G7. Decision time, folks. Here's another piece of chess trivia that is absolutely essential to know. That is not really chess trivia. I just gave you a small white lie. Shame on me. However, with the passed pawns, you don't want to exchange as often. You want to be able to have your pieces help you push the pawn in. If you're on the defensive and you're in this position, swap like crazy if you can. Lessen the power of the pieces, which means take them off the boards. Ideally, it would be great if tactics could show up so that Bobby could get a free piece or two, but he can't. So exchange the queens. It makes it less likely for this white guy to push the pawn in. So that move makes sense. That's what I'm trying to point out to you. Again, the angels are up there blaring their horns. This is utterly magnificent how he puts the knight, the hero, on an outpost in the center of the board. There's the range of influence, blocking the need to exchange the queens. He keeps the lady on so he can push the pawn in. This is fabulous chess. I'm sorry Bobby's on the losing side. I'm sure he was too. For the rest of us, hot dang, this lesson cannot be looked at too many times. This is stunning. He's doing everything correct to show how to always improve the power of your pieces. This is outrageous. Look at the central total domination with the support of the pieces that is going on here, and the connection with the pawns. It's curtains. It's curtains. Bobby can resign right now. That's crazy to see how beautifully this guy plays. I'm not trying to, I can't over exaggerate how powerful that beautiful move is. That's incredible. Bobby has nothing. Bishop e7 doesn't do spit. He's hitting granite. And it will always be granite. That does nothing. Except open up his rook. And that's important. But again, he's playing a piece down. You notice the inactivity down here. It's not his fault. There's nothing he can do. Just observe things like that. And you sharpen your eye for studying the board. And it does help you be able to make the next correct move. No threat from the rook there. Bobby advanced his pawn. Again, more energy, more power, more influence up into Bobby's game. There's only one lone defender of the king. The most powerful piece, at the same time, because of this position, the most vulnerable. See that. See that. Yeah. Man, that's a bad spot. So, rook g8. Okay. Okay. Pure lesson here. The power of the pass pawn. You've got him right where you want him. He has to guard his king. Now put the pressure on. Get the queen in there. And Bobby took it. Look at the tactic here. Because he's centralized with that fantastic knight on the most beautiful outpost with the king in the corner and no protection, he can afford to look for tactics. And man, does he look for tactics. Check. And Bobby goes to h7. And he takes the queen. And he resigns. One of the most beautiful end forks. Not quite as good as one of Alekin's, where he did the final move of the game, where he forks the king, both rooks, and the queen with his knight. I'll have to dig that game up and show you. But, man, I'm here to tell you this game has everything. And it's been funner than I'll get out for me to describe stuff to you. So, thanks for watching my Backyard Professor Chess videos. I will be back with more, lots more. In the meantime, have fun, be good, do well, make lots of friends, be happy, and have a good rest of the weekend. And I will catch up to you very soon with yet more thrilling Bobby instructional videos. Yeah, you gotta love this. We're seeing some fantastic games.